next? Behind this reunion selfie lies an untold story of time, fame, loss, and the lasting legacy of Seinfeld. There are some shows that become successful. There are some shows that become beloved. And then there are a few that become part of everyday language. Seinfeld is one of those shows. Because it was never just a sitcom. It was never just four neurotic New Yorkers arguing over parking spaces, soup, dating, puffy shirts, mints, marble rye, close talkers, or the etiquette of absolutely nothing. It became something larger than its premise. It became a way of seeing modern life. That is why the selfie with time idea fits Seinfeld so well. A younger Jerry standing in that apartment, still figuring out that nothing could become television gold. An older Jerry Seinfeld beside him now, after decades of comedy and public life, looking back at the role that turned a stand-up comic into one of television's defining figures. People reported a real-life holiday reunion in late 2025 between Jerry, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Larry David, which makes the idea of time folding back on this show feel especially vivid. A younger Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Elaine Benes, all intelligence, irritation, vanity, rhythm, and perfect comic timing. An older Julia standing beside her, after one of the greatest post-sitcom careers in TV history, still carrying the energy of the character who helped redefine what a female sitcom lead could be. A younger Jason Alexander as George Costanza, one of the most painfully human comic inventions television ever produced. A younger Michael Richards as Kramer, somehow turning entrances into punchlines and physical chaos into art. That is the power of Seinfeld now. Because the younger selves are not only characters, they are cultural memory. The show ran for 9 seasons from 1989 to 1998, and over that run it won 10 Emmy Awards and 3 Golden Globes. People's reporting on the show's legacy also notes those totals, while anniversary coverage still treats the series as a benchmark for sitcom success. Its finale aired on May 14, 1998, and decades later it is still discussed as one of television's most controversial endings. People wrote in 2025 that the finale remains a talking point 27 years later, which says a great deal about how firmly the show remains lodged in public memory. And then there is the larger reputation. Rolling Stone placed Seinfeld at number 32 on its list of the 100 greatest TV shows of all time. That may sound lower than some fans expect, but it still places the series securely inside television's highest canon. But lists and awards are only part of the story. What made Seinfeld last was recognition. The way it captured the absurdity of ordinary behavior. The way it understood that tiny social irritations could feel epic. The way it turned selfishness, pettiness, vanity, and social awkwardness into a style of truth. And above all, the way it refused sentimentality. No hugging, no learning became the shorthand for its worldview, a phrase Rolling Stone highlighted in its 1994 coverage of the show's impact on American comedy. That mattered. Because Seinfeld was not trying to teach the audience a lesson. It was trying to expose how ridiculous people become when they think their tiny preferences are moral principles. And that is why it still feels alive. So what happened to the cast? Who is still active? Who stepped back? And who is no longer here? The core quartet is still with us, but their post-show paths were very different. Jerry Seinfeld remained publicly active through stand-up, specials, projects like Unfrosted, and frequent high-profile appearances. People covered his 2024 Unfrosted premiere and also the 2025 holiday reunion with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Larry David. Julia Louis-Dreyfus built arguably the most acclaimed acting career after the show, becoming one of television's most decorated performers. Even if this script is about Seinfeld, it is impossible to talk about her now without recognizing how completely she transcended the former sitcom star label. Jason Alexander remains publicly visible and active in acting, voice work, commercials, interviews, and podcast appearances. People was still covering new Alexander interviews and campaigns in 2025 and 2026, which underscores that he is not a faded relic of the 1990s, but a continuing presence. Michael Richards is more selective and far less visible than the others, but he still appears in reunion contexts. People noted his appearance with Jerry Seinfeld at the Unfrosted premiere in 2024. So the honest version is not the cast disappeared. It is that the cast aged into different degrees of visibility. Some remained highly public. Some stayed active, but more selectively. Some became less central to everyday entertainment headlines. But the legacy of the quartet itself never vanished. And then comes the harder truth. Because part of what makes Seinfeld emotional now is not only that the leads are older. It is that many of the unforgettable supporting figures are gone. Jerry Stiller, the immortal Frank Costanza, died in 2020 at 92. Estelle Harris, who made Estelle Costanza one of sitcom history's great comic mothers, died in 2022 at 93. Liz Sheridan, remembered as Helen Seinfeld, also died in 2022 at 93. Richard Hurd, Mr. Wilhelm, died in 2020 at 87. Once you know that, the reunion image changes. The younger self is not just a character frozen in a funny moment. It becomes preservation. The older self, if still here, becomes witness. Witness to the years. Witness to the fact that the show outlived its original moment. Witness to the way lines, faces, and gestures became communal memory. And if the actor is gone, then the imagined selfie with time becomes elegiac. Not tragic in the way a heavy drama is tragic, but moving in a quieter way. Because comedy ages differently. Drama asks us to remember pain. Comedy asks us to remember presence. And some people were presence machines. Jerry Stiller exploding over Festivus. Estelle Harris turning every complaint into an aria. Liz Sheridan radiating maternal familiarity. Richard Hurd somehow making office confusion into comic grace. That is why the then and now idea can work beautifully with Seinfeld. Not despite the comedy, but because of it. So then comes the bigger question. Has any sitcom surpassed it? The honest answer is, many great sitcoms followed, but very few have matched its cultural footprint in quite the same way. Different viewers will argue for Cheers, Frasier, The Simpsons, Friends, The Office, Parks and Recreation, or others. And because comedy is so personal, the arguments are endless. But Seinfeld retains a very specific kind of authority. It changed what mainstream American sitcom comedies sounded like. It gave everyday selfishness a philosophy. It gave trivial annoyance the grandeur of a moral crisis. And it proved that a show about almost nothing could reveal almost everything about a certain kind of urban modern life. That is not a small achievement. And perhaps that is because the show's core value is stronger than people admit. People often say Seinfeld is about nothing. That is true as a hook, but not as a final truth. Because Seinfeld is really about observation. The show says people are ridiculous. People are petty. People are insecure. People are vain. People are selfish. People are absurdly fragile around routine, status, etiquette, food, dating, travel, clothing, and tiny breaches of comfort. And all of that is funny because it is recognizably human. So what is the core value of Seinfeld? The little things people pretend don't matter are often the most revealing things about them. That is the heart of the show. Not morality. Not redemption. Not growth. Revelation through trivia. You learn who people are by how they react to the small stuff. The waiting. The embarrassment. The social rules. The ego wounds. The inconveniences. The petty resentments they elevate into destiny. That is why Jerry works. Why Elaine works. Why George works. Why Kramer works. Because each of them is a different style of human absurdity. Jerry is detachment turned into personality. Elaine is taste and frustration in constant battle. George is insecurity becoming metaphysics. Kramer is freedom without friction. And when you place the younger and older versions in one frame, that truth becomes visual. The younger Jerry still thinks the joke is the whole point. The older Jerry knows the joke became history. The younger Julia is still inventing Elaine's rhythm. The older Julia stands beside a character who never stopped living in reruns, references, and people's speech. The younger Alexander is still building George's panic. The older Alexander knows that George became one of the most quoted, recognizable comic creations in TV history. The younger Richards is still turning movement into genius. The older Richards, more private now, makes the image gentler and stranger at once. That is not just nostalgia. That is comedy aging into permanence. And maybe that is the final achievement of Seinfeld. Not just the Emmys. Not just the Golden Globes. Not just the finale ratings. Not just the endless quotability. But the fact that decades later, the show still feels specific. Still exact. Still observational. Still capable of making people say, "That's me," even when what they are recognizing is petty, silly, or embarrassing. That is rare. Because most sitcoms become comfort. Some become memory. A few become institutions. Seinfeld became something even odder and more impressive. A shared behavioral vocabulary. So when your video places the younger and older cast in one frame, the result is more than a reunion concept. It becomes a portrait of comedy itself surviving time. The younger self delivers the bit. The older self carries what the bit became. And in the case of the supporting legends who are gone, the frame becomes something else again. A way of saying that laughter can outlive the room it was first heard in. When you think about Seinfeld today, which character feels the most timeless to you? Jerry, Elaine, George, Kramer, or someone else? Which selfie with time reunion from Seinfeld would hit you the hardest, and why? Do you think any sitcom has truly surpassed Seinfeld in cultural impact and everyday quotability? Or does it still stand on its own level?